Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS Tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, a biotech special. And welcome back here on the good ship SS Tomorrow. Now, if you may look at the definition from Ray Kurzweil, that the singularities where information technology, nanotechnology, and biotechnology all converge. I've covered a lot about information technology. I have in the past covered such topics as a DNA passport, you may have to go, but I haven't really covered nanotechnology and biotechnology too much. But today's two guests, and it's a two-part special, will cover this very much where everything is in terms of the frontier of medicine. So we've got Lou Hawthorne, who specialises in nanotechnologies and nanots, and a similar application to Dr. Jeff Gross and his work with stem cells. Now, in this particular country, Australia, we're a little bit behind with therapeutic goods, and I think this is all about education. It's that this technology is here now. We just need the politicians to catch up and regulate and make sure that this potential life-saving technology is going beyond pharmaceuticals. It's here now, and we're foolish just to ignore it or have objections to it. It actually literally can save lives. So the first one up on the deck is Lou Hawthorne and his work with nanots. Welcome back to another episode, and today it's very exciting because I've covered information technology, I've covered biotechnology. One little piece of technology I haven't yet covered, and that's nanotechnology. And our guest today is Lou Hawthorne, and he's into this field, and it's got very exciting stuff. I think this is a very interesting area to look at. And Lou, welcome. And as with all my guests, can you please give us a quick rundown on your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me on the show, Dave. It's a real pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
I've taken a very unusual path to where I'm at now. I actually studied creative writing in college, but I had a deep love of science and science fiction, and a weird knack for it. And I had no knack for what my family wanted me to be, which was a litigator, an attorney. But I got deep into science when I started managing a cloning company after Dolly the sheep was cloned. And
Wow.
I spent 12 years doing cloning of different animals, and then transitioned. I lost a mentor to cancer, and he was an expert in cell signaling, which is how cells talk to each other. And my brain was so excited by the possibilities of cell signaling and what it implied for the treatment of disease that I immersed in that. And the technology that we've invented is a new way of treating disease based on information flow between cells, some of which is good and drives health, and some of it is actually bad and drives disease. So what we've invented is a way of pulling out bad informational molecules that drive or enable diseases of different kinds.
Interesting. Now, I know it's a very broad field, and let's take a step back. Can we explain nanotechnology to me like I'm 12?
So nanotech is basically just technology at the nanoscale, which means a billionth of a meter. So it's basically smaller than, it's down around the virus size.
Wow.
And it is actually possible to engineer structures that are down around the virus size. And I would say that nanotech is as broad as information technology. There are many, many forms. I'm not an expert in all forms. I focus on medical nanotech, and our particular form of medical nanotech is really the reverse or inverse of conventional medical nanotech. So conventional medical nanotech is for the purpose of delivering a drug inside a nanoparticle, and the nanoparticle has some sort of structure to it that helps to target specific cells meeting certain criteria, like their cancer cells or their pancreatic islets or whatever. Almost all of that medical nanotech has failed because the targeting has failed. Our tech is different. It doesn't deliver a molecule like a drug. It captures and clears molecules from circulation. It works much better because right where we put the nanoparticles into circulation is where the targets are that we're taking out. So our nanotech doesn't have to find its way through the body to a specific tissue. We deplete specific disease-causing molecules from blood, and then by diffusion, they're rapidly pulled out of whatever tissue compartment they're elevated in, driving a disease, because everything in the body wants to equalize. So if you take something out of blood, it will be pulled out of tissue as well.
Wow. And is any other myths about nanotechnology that you like to dispel?
Well, I think one of the biggest myths about nanotechnology comes from a very entertaining movie called Fantastic Voyage, which starred Raquel Welch. And in it, they miniaturize a submarine and travel through the body to find diseased tissue and fix it. And there are people who think that modern medical nanotech involves these tiny little machines with lots of moving parts. People have made those. They almost always fail almost immediately. Our nanotech is best thought of as a programmable, virus-sized sponge. It has no moving parts, but it has a very specific, very fast-acting capacity to adsorb whatever it's biochemically programmed to adsorb from blood. And this is very powerful. This nanotech, we call it nanot because it's nano-sized, but it negates or depletes from blood. So we call it a nanot. The nanot works very deeply and very rapidly. We can deplete from your blood any specific type of molecule that we program the nanot to deplete by 95% in less than 5 minutes. So basically, we can denude your blood of whatever we want to denude it of. And there are lots of molecules that can't be drugged, can't be interrupted or fixed by drugs, but they can be captured and cleared by nanots. I could give some examples if you like.
Go ahead.
Sure. So looking at cancer, a lot of very advanced drugs and other technologies have been applied to cancer, but it's getting worse. Cancer rates are actually rising, not falling. And the drugs tend to offer very limited benefit, even the most advanced drugs. Maybe they extend life by a few months, if that. However, no cancer can survive without immune inhibitors, the actual inhibition of the immune system, because they're grossly abnormal in all the ways the immune system evolved over hundreds of millions of years to detect and destroy. But the immune system leaves cancer alone because they secrete these powerful immune inhibitors, and they have to do that to survive. So our technology, our approach to treating cancer is don't target the cell directly. That's what leads to terrible side effects. Focus on the soluble, meaning dissolved in blood, tumor-generated immune inhibitors. Once you take those out, without even bothering to target the cancer directly, the immune system can attack and destroy the cancer without any drugs or radiation. We've proven this in animals, and we're confident it's going to work in humans too.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess outside of cancer, I mean, I said this would work too with, say, venom. If you get bitten by a snake, for example, or
we could
stung by a jellyfish.
Yes, we could totally develop nanots against all sorts of venoms. It's not high on our priority list. And the reason is it's expensive to make a nanot. So we're prioritizing where is the greatest need with the greatest suffering. And after cancer, that's sepsis. Sepsis actually kills more people than all forms of cancer combined. People think of it as just a really bad infection, but it's actually not. Sepsis can be triggered by an infection or a wound or shock or any number of things. But what it actually is the immune system's overreaction to a trigger of some kind. And you can actually pull the trigger out. Like, for instance, you could eradicate the bacteria or the virus that causes sepsis, and the patient would still die of sepsis. It's a spiraling, feed-forward immune system overreaction, kind of like a nuclear meltdown. But we know the molecules involved, and we can grab them and clear them from the body within minutes to extinguish. It's called a cytokine storm. We can extinguish the specific cytokines that drive the storm. And we've also shown this in animals.
Interesting. And I guess too, can we make this like personable with nanots? Can we like move towards, say, a personal treatment plan rather than having an off-the-shelf treatment plan?
Well, that's a really good question. When you have a complicated disease and a weak therapeutic, then the temptation is let's
Mm.
take our weak therapeutic and optimize it as best we can to treat this complicated disease. But when you're focusing more deeply, more powerfully on the molecular roots of disease, those roots are common across all people and generally a broad range of diseases. And so that's the philosophy of our company is we look for the molecular roots of multiple diseases. For instance, in cancer, there are hundreds of different kinds of solid tumor cancers, but there's only a few, maybe a half dozen to a dozen at most, tumor-generated immune inhibitors. And all cancers use the same small set of immune inhibitors. So we're developing nanots against those immune inhibitors without worrying about the specific types of cancer. So the way we would personalize it to the individual, to answer your question, is first, we measure your blood. We know you have cancer. We measure your blood and figure out which specific immune inhibitors are active in your tumor. And then we put the nanots in against those in particular. So it is off the shelf. We don't have the burden of some complex engineered cell therapy that costs $500,000.
Mm.
It is off the shelf, but we choose the specific nanot based on what a given tumor is using to defend itself. Likewise, in treating sepsis or cytokine storm, we would put the nanot in that is specific to the cytokine that's elevated in that patient's storm.
It's really interesting, Lou. I guess you're at trial stage. Have you got any success so far with it?
Sure. So we are collaborating. We are preclinical, so that means we haven't yet gone injected nanots in humans. We know that the materials we're using have been used in human therapeutics before and have been proven to be safe. But no one's ever made a nanot before, so that's new. We have made nanots and tested them in humanized animals, meaning, for instance, at Mayo Clinic, we developed nanots against a specific human tumor-generated immune inhibitor, and Mayo Clinic then took those nanots and put them into a humanized mouse that has, it's a wild-type mouse, but it has human immune system and human tumors. And it profoundly suppressed a type of tumor called a triple-negative breast cancer tumor, which is extremely resistant to all drug therapeutics. But the nanots totally suppressed the growth of those tumors. So we're optimistic that this is a powerful new class of medicine that can do things that conventional drugs can't do.
Interesting stuff. And speaking of this, when we met, you said you're somewhat of a futurist yourself. Where do you see this technology, say, in 10, 15 years' time, like deep into the 2030s and beyond?
Right. Well, we think this is how a lot of diseases are going to be treated in the future because we're going beyond the conventional model of what the body is. The body is thought of as a collection of tissue and organs and blood, but really that's at a higher level, at a lower level, at a deeper level. The body's an informational system. The body is, cells are essentially logic gates and depots of chemical resources. And they're constantly talking to each other with informational small molecules. And you can view the whole body that way as an informational system. And in health, the information is flowing between cells in a rational, methodical way that deep time has programmed optimally. In disease, you have bad information flowing between cells. Cells are telling each other to do things they shouldn't do. We can take out our whole medical framework and mission is to design nanots that can take out bad information flowing between cells and let the rationale of the body, the logic of the body, programmed by deep time, let it sort out the illness, let the immune system do what it evolved to do and fix the problem. So this is how we believe disease is going to be treated in the future. It's fundamentally rational, and it's based on deeper analysis of how the body really works and how it should work.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I know on my podcast we've got a theme of the spaceship. And is it true we can potentially use nanots for, say, treating health in outer space?
We can. And I've got a buddy who is working with NASA, and I sometimes present at longevity conferences because there is a longevity aspect to our tech. And my buddy said, do nanots have utility in space? And I said, let me think about it. And I wrote a white paper. I thought about it, and I wrote a white paper called Nanots for Astronauts, which NASA got a hold of. And we got invited to join an accelerator called Space H. The H stands for health. And since then, we've been working with Space H, which is sponsored by NASA and Microsoft and a number of other powerful organizations, to design programs that will help astronauts remain healthy in space. Space is a very unhealthy place. You have high radiation, you have high stress, you have microgravity, which we have no evolutionary context for. And it all leads to these biological consequences, which we're familiar with. It leads to inflammation, potentially even sepsis, which one astronaut in particular did suffer on Apollo 13. And it also is tumorigenic, meaning it leads to the growth of tumors. And the longer the voyage, such as to Mars and back, which is a 3-year voyage, the greater the probability that you're going to have life-threatening sepsis or tumor growth, cancer, based on radiation and stress. So we are planning to deploy nanots with NASA's blessing and SpaceX blessing, if they embrace this tech, to keep astronauts healthy on upcoming long-duration space flight.
Interesting. Before we wrap things up, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
It's hard to know. I live and breathe this stuff, and I'm so excited by it that I could go on and on about it. But I think you've done a really good job of asking the most important questions. I think we just have to see how it unfolds. So far, it looks like it's going to be a neat solution to a lot of problems. We'll just have to see.
I guess that's the thing with nascent technology is just, watch the space, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. The future is going to unfold the way it wants to unfold. We're inventing it as fast as we can, but of course, you don't know exactly what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. And finally, Lou, where else can we find you?
Well, we're on the web at www.nanotics.com. Our company is called Nanotics. The tech is called the Nanot. And also, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look up by my name, Lou Hawthorne, or by the company, Nanotics. You can see some of my past presentations at different scientific conferences and learn more about the technology that way.
Fantastic. Lou, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's a fascinating field, and we'll probably invite you back in a couple of years' time, see how it's all progressing.
Great. Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Lou. That's nanotechnology, but something that's related. And if you're looking at biotechnology, it's kind of controversial. I think a lot of myths telling about it. It's stem cells. Now, it's not going from some goo or it's going from some unborn plants. It's actually the building blocks. We're actually using our body's cells to actually regenerate new growth, and potentially could be a secret of unlocking a prolonged life. We can go from 80 years up to 160. And I have covered biohacking before. So my next guest is Dr. Jeff Gross. He's joining us from Las Vegas, Nevada, and he's coming up after the break. And welcome back, and we're continuing our series on biotechnology in particular. We're looking into the fascinating world of stem cell and stem cell research. And we've got an expert on the line. He's Dr. Jeff Gross. He's joining us from Las Vegas. Dr. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Now, as with all my guests, can you just give us a quick rundown on your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Well, listen, I've been a medical physician for 26 years. I practiced traditional neurological surgery. I had a spine fellowship. I treated mostly people with neck and back problems. And I have a undergraduate background in molecular cell biology. So when my patients came to me and said, gee, doc, we really are trying not to have surgery. How about some stem cells? I decided to go back and tap into some of that undergraduate training in molecular cell biology and opened my eyes and retrained to some of what's happened in all those years. And now I can offer, stem cell and other regenerative type treatments to not only my spine patients, but to so many.
Yeah. And as someone who practices regenerative medicine, what does regeneration mean to you?
So regenerative medicine, regeneration is a strategy we've observed that the body, we can make a human, right? In the mother's womb, a human can form from cells called stem cells.
Yeah.
And all cells stem from those cells. Well, we use those human making and reparative cells in a strategic way to help someone fight a disease maybe, or fix a joint. And that is a regenerative approach or regenerative medicine.
Fantastic. And is there any myths about stem cells before we go delving deeper that you like to dispel right now?
Yeah, well, a lot of people think they come from these unethical sources, but we only use biologics, stem cells, and related growth factors and other cell signaling particles that come from donations, usually from amniotic fluid or umbilical cord after a baby is successfully born. Congratulations, mom, here's your baby. We were going to throw away the placenta and all this stuff. Can we have it? And so it's a safe, and those materials are screened and tested to make sure they're disease-free, so that it's really a safe and ethical approach.
Fantastic, Ed. How does it contrast, say, with conventional medical approaches?
Well, traditional approaches in the modern world would be to use pharmaceuticals or synthetic drugs, or even surgeries or implantation of metal and hardware into the body. And although there are a role for those things, it's a much more logical approach to be more natural and holistic. And that's where regenerative medicine has a role before these more invasive treatments.
So I guess you're just using your body to help correct itself rather than have some foreign agent coming in that can set working together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we have the blueprint, the factory blueprints already. We know how to make a body. We know how to repair a body. As we age, we are less efficient. Our stem cells get exhausted. So we're tapping back into a more youthful source of those blueprints to repair.
Yeah. And I guess you can do it, almost treat almost any ailment or any thing that I'm just trying to think here, what's the limit of stem cells that for treatment?
Well, currently we only use what are called sort of these multipotent stem cells. So they can't, create a human or create a limb, but there are ways to take those cells in a petri dish and induce them backwards along the embryonic lineage back to, when you're an embryo of just one or two cells. And those induced cells have the potential for us to learn how to regrow a limb or create a clone or something, to the extent that may or may not be ethical, or you'd want a clone of yourself running around out there. But the potential is there. Those are just not currently widely available.
Yeah. And how do daily lifestyle choices amplify the longevity effects of regenerative treatments?
Well, anything that involves inflaming your body is a degenerative approach, is an aging approach. So if you look at bad behaviors like smoking or too much alcohol or sedentary lifestyle or maybe stress, all these things, create cellular degeneration in the body. And the alternative is, eating right, eating, whole grain natural foods and avoiding, these pesticides, eating more naturally and exercising and getting restorative sleep. All those things are anti-inflammatory. And those people with these lifestyle behaviors that are good tend to have less disease and tend to live longer and healthier.
Fantastic. And as medical technology progresses, where can we see this in the future, as this podcast is about the future?
Well, we're already working on some selective elements from stem cells called exosomes, that some exosomes, when filtered out, are selectively deadly to cancer cells while not hurting non-cancerous cells. So imagine this is a treatment potentially for certain cancers, whether or not it's used in conjunction with existing treatments. So I feel that we're going to make inroads into treating many different types of cancers soon. We're basically there. I also see treatments for frailty, where some of these stem cell-derived exosomes are chock full of mitochondria for the cells. And these selective components of stem cell-derived biologics will be useful to help sort an elderly or frail population maintain muscle mass, bone density, and help prevent dementia and have a better quality of life into your later years and extend those later years on.
Interesting. So in a way, it's really the secret ingredient for, say, biohacking, enabling people to live, say, beyond 80 years to, I think the ceiling's about 160, I read in an article last year. So I'm on the right track there.
I think you are. I think, of course, the earlier you start and the more purist you are about, your lifestyle behaviors and some of these technologies will probably continue to push that ceiling beyond the 160 mark.
Fantastic. And to the skeptics about longevity and healing benefits of stem cells, what's your message to them?
Well, don't knock it until you tried it. So most of those people believe the myths about the sources and, these baby farms and stuff, but that's what the big pharma companies want you to think. We have wonderful different results and stories. There's excellent scientific publications, mostly in the earlier ones with the longer follow-up come from Europe and Asia. Here in the States, we're a little late to the party. I think Australia echoes kind of where the States are in this technology, but it's available. The things they're doing in China and South Korea are just amazing. They're way ahead.
Oh, fantastic. Can you share some lightness on some success stories with stem cell treatment?
Absolutely. The low-hanging fruit, Dave, is really structures, joints. We have an amazing track record of following some French protocols where we inject specific areas of the joint targeted by some MRIs that match up with the symptoms. And we've shown in comparing before and after MRIs to an injection treatment of these biologics, actual regrowth of the cartilage in a knee, for example. And with that, of course, improvement in pain and taking someone who was recommended to consider a knee replacement surgery and to a point where they no longer need that. I think that's a win.
Oh, wow. I mean, I know, say, Australian rules football, we get a lot of ACLs are probably a common injury. So I can guess in the future that if we have stem cells, we could speed up the delay from injury getting back play on the field, so, for example.
Yeah. Not in the future. Yeah. I think we're doing that now. Wow. And we even hear we see in the States, there have been athletes that have long tapped into the stem cell medicine field. You've got Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning, and you've got, Aaron Rodgers, who's a footballer here in the States, who's healed his ankle and is now back playing the professional level. So I think there's no reason you couldn't apply that to footballers in Australia.
Well, now, before we wrap up, I know it's very short and sweet, but is there anything I didn't ask but should?
Oh, well, I think a lot of people see this as part of the future. It's really part of the present, and it is available to people. We have a lot of people that travel and sort of medical tourism. They come and do this. We do like to meet with people remotely and go over their individual concerns, and because everyone's different, and see if we can help them. And of course, invite them here to Las Vegas, only if they're a good candidate to try something. Some of our treatments are IV, intravenous, amazing anti-inflammatory benefits. I do them myself, just preventatively and multiple times a year, just an IV. But we treat a lot of joints and spine and all kinds of things. So it's available, it's here, and the future is very bright with what's coming and what we'll be able to do with these biologics, tapping back into what nature has given us.
Fantastic. And finally, Jeff, before we go, where else can our listeners find you?
My name of the business is called Recelebrate, because you are celebrating the renewal of your cells. So that's RECELLEBRATE. You find us at Recelebrate on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our website is recelebrate.com.
Fantastic. Jeff, it's been a pleasure chatting to you this morning.
Thank you so much for your time.
And thank you to Lou and Jeff for their input. And thank you to Dale and Miller PR people for putting me in touch. I know I was a little bit out of my comfort zone for this, but I think it's very important, and we cover a whole spectrum of technology, not just information technology. This is our pure technology podcast, and this amazing frontier of medicine is here now, and it's only going to get better, folks. So coming up next time on The Friendly Futurist, we're going to delve deep back into information technology and into the weird state of play of cybersecurity. It's coming up next here on the good ship SS Tomorrow. The Friendly Futurist is a podcast West production. It's produced and edited by me, Dave Monk. If you love the show, please give us a 5-star review on your favourite podcasting platform. Until next time, friends, stay curious, stay open-minded, and the future is user-friendly.
another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.